Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name's Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Petty Officer Ronnie Tollipan. We warmly welcome the family of Private Vivian Francis David Sprague, whose story will be told shortly. We also welcome Wing Commander Sharon Bowen, member of the Australian War Memorial Council. We're also honoured to welcome members of the Uphold and Recognise group, including Major General the Honourable Michael Jeffrey. We're also honoured to acknowledge the recipients of the 2017 Chief of Army Jonathan Church Ethical Soldier Award, who are joining us this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge members of the RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors and students on behalf of the following schools: from Queensland, Merredin College, Merredin Plains, and from Victoria, Glenferrie Primary School in Hawthorn. Australia's Federation Guard is a tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Students, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Vivian Francis David Sprague. Vivian Sprague was born in 1896 in Blackheath, New South Wales. To George and Sarah Sprague, he was the second of two sons born to the couple. He grew up in Blackheath, where he attended the local public school. By the outbreak of the First World War, Sprague was working as a shop assistant. He was known to his mates as Vic, but due to his short, stocky disposition, he was lovingly referred to by his family as Fatty. His elder brother Dudley was amongst the first wave of men to enlist, joining the 13th Battalion and sailing with the 2nd Convoy, which carried the 4th Infantry Brigade in December. Sprague enlisted with parental consent on the 20th of April 1915, just days before the landings at Gallipoli. His initial training took place at Liverpool, after which he was allotted to reinforcements to the 2nd Battalion. He embarked with other reinforcements from Sydney in June aboard the transport ship Karula, bound for service abroad. Sprague was taken on strength of the 2nd Battalion at 2 a.m. on the morning of the 6th of August, along with 2 officers and 135 other men from the 6th Reinforcements. It was a momentous day on which to arrive. The long-planned August offensive, in which the British-led forces would attempt a series of breakout actions to end the stalemate and wrest control of the Gallipoli Peninsula from the Turks, would begin later that day. The Australian positions were a scene of frantic activity as preparations were finalised for the attack on Lone Pine. At 2 p.m, 3 mines were detonated forward of a position known as the Pimple. Half an hour later, the battalions of the 1st Brigade began making their way forward. The bombardment of Turkey's positions began around 4:30 p.m, and at 5:30 p.m, with the sun setting behind the Australians, the attack began. The 2nd Battalion's war diary contains an account of the charge. 3 short whistle blasts sounded and was taken up along the line. Our men cleared the parapet and left the recesses in the new firing line and attacked with vigour. The enemy's artillery opened up with shrapnel. Their machine guns also came into action at once. The space between ours and the enemy's trenches was heavily swept with fire. It was during the initial charge that Private Sprague was killed. He was 19 years old. In late 1915, Dudley Sprague made an inquiry to the Red Cross on behalf of his parents about Vivian's fate. Private Vedvik Frost, a member of the same group of reinforcements as Sprague, provided evidence about his mate's death, stating that he had been in the charge on Lone Pine with Sprague and had seen him fall. 2nd Lieutenant Dudley Sprague returned to Australia in 1919 after landing in Gallipoli on the morning of the 26th of April. He was involved in fierce fighting around Quinn's Post. He was evacuated to Egypt at the end of May, suffering nervous exhaustion, and did not return to Gallipoli. He served in England from 1916 until 1918 and qualified as a pilot with the Australian Flying Corps only days before the end of the war. He returned to Australia in 1919. Vivian Sprague was believed to have been buried at Lone Pine, but his remains were unable to be positively identified after the war. Today, a special memorial headstone in the Lone Pine Cemetery commemorates his death. Recorded under his name is the epitaph, "Their glory shall not be blotted out." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Vivian Francis David Sprague, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. at the going down of the sun and in the morning. We will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catapult party, present! Arms! Catapult party, shoulders! Arms!
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catapult party, outwards! Turn! Catapult party, quick march!
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you a very good evening. Thank you.